everybody, welcome to Poverty Hill Adventures. Today our friend Mark is going to share some proven techniques to help you catch fish on your fly rod. In case you missed his last video on fly casting tips, you'll find it on this channel.
I'll start with one of the first things I want to bring to your attention is line drag. And what happens is we'll cast our fly into the water and the current will grab the line and cause a big loop like this. And it drags the fly much faster than you want it to go. So we're going to talk about that later to address that issue, but we're going to call that line drag. One more time. See that big U in there? That's what we're trying to avoid. All right. In order to catch more fish, we got to get our line in the water and not be untying knots and snags and all that stuff. Occasionally you're going to get caught on something. I'm caught on this log right here. I haven't put much tension on it. Just I know I'm caught. I haven't buried the hook. So a good way to get that out is just do a good roll cast the first time. So you form your D-loop like we did in the last video, and you give a flick, and you're out. So learn your roll cast, guys. Occasionally, from time to time, we're going to find ourselves using a little bit extra weight, a weighted fly, and with the shale streams, the rocky bottoms, you're going to get caught. And it's not, the barb isn't buried, so you just, somehow you got to get pulled from the opposite side of the stream. Well, we can't always get over there, so one way that works well, when you roll cast with a heavy fly, it doesn't pull it out as easy as that last time I showed you. So what you can do is roll cast beyond where it's caught and let the current pull it beyond. Wait a few seconds. When you see the line is past it, give a yank, an aggressive yank, and that allows the line to pull from the far shore because the floating line is over there, and a lot of times that's all you need to get that hook out of there. Now right now I am hooked just as we described. My split shot, I'm down in the bottom, snagged up. I'm going to roll it way out there and wait, and pull, and out she comes. Simple as that. Well, one thing I want you to get really in tune with right away is when you cast to immediately hook the line with your middle finger, and that's how you have control. One of the mistakes people do is they cast, they let go of everything, and now you got to gather together. And occasionally that fish sees your fly coming. It's in a feeding state of mind and it intercepts it right at the water. And if you're not ready, that fish whacks it and you're all thumbs and you don't even get a chance to drive a hook into them. So get in the habit of immediately hooking that right on your finger and don't let go of the line. Another reason to maintain contact with the line hand as you cast, let it slide through your hand, is once in a while we get that perfect cast and we overshoot the distance and it's headed right for the shore, and right for the logs, right for the brush. And what you can do then is just put the brakes on and stop it and get more of a precision distance. Another reason you want to maintain the contact is if you're fighting the headwind or you just have a lousy cast and that line's not going to extend like you want it and the leader's going to crumble, it's all going to pile up. That could scare the fish. You're certainly not going to be in tune with it if a fish strikes right away. So what you can do is if the wind is knocking it back like that, just before it lands, you can pull back and basically kind of slap it down, and that gives you that nice 8, 9, 10, 11 feet of leader extension, which is what you want. And that way, as soon as you start stripping, you're in a direct link of contact with the fly. What we do with fly fishing quite often is we use the floating line as like a bobber or a strike indicator. So as it's going along, floating, if you see any little twitch, you want to lift up and drive that hook in there. Sometimes your fly line is going along, you're watching the end of that fly line, and it looks like it just kind of hung up on something. Don't be sleeping at the wheel. Set the hook. What happens, you might be right on target, That fish only had to move 3 inches to grab your fly. It grabs it and it's right back. So it appears like you're caught on the bottom, and actually that fish has it in his mouth. So quite often we're just daydreaming and you just see that slight little bend in the fly line. Be in tune with that and don't miss out. One thing you want to do when you're stripping in flies, which is what I'm doing now, you want to keep your rod tip right at the water. Notice I've got a nice straight line from my rod tip to the fly. And this, so listen up, man, this helped me to catch 3 to 4 times the amount of fish from years ago. I used to strip in with my rod like this, and notice there's that big sag. That prevents you from feeling those subtle takes. So by keeping your rod tip low, you're having a direct link, a direct line to the fly, and you're going to detect a lot more hits. I've seen 5-pound trout visually come up, and it almost looks like they're just tasting the fly. And if you didn't see it, you would think it was a bluegill or some little fish. They were just so delicate about it, so gentle. And I've seen bluegills that can come up and whack it 3-4 times on the same retrieve without even being caught. So this is really good for keeping that tight link, and I highly recommend get out of that habit of keeping your rod tip high. Get it right down at the water. There is one variable to that in a situation where you have a real strong current and you are purposely keeping your rod tip high so that the closer current doesn't grab the line and just drag it 100 miles an hour. In that case, you have to keep your rod tip high, and you have to really keep a keen eye on the line itself to detect that strike. So to retrieve a fly when we're stripping it, hook it there, relax, 3-inch, you can do 6-inch, you can do a foot, you can do a full arm length with a twitch, a full arm length. You could start with a twitch and then a full arm length, and there's 2 ways to set the hook, to drive that hook home. One would be the traditional lift up, or actually it would be like so. Number 2 would be to strip set. And you don't want to do that unless you have a pretty heavy line on, say 10-pound or stronger. And it's just simple as this. You feel the bite and you just give them a yank. That's called a strip set. So around this neck of the woods, we've got a lot of rocky shale streams and fish for steelhead and whatnot, and we need to put a little extra weight on. I've got a split shot, you can see it right there on here. And a lot of people have a hard time casting when you're adding extra weight. They call it the chuck and duck, where you chuck it back and duck because you're afraid you're going to get caught. So sometimes they just get nothing. They can't even do it. And their timing is off. So it's very important when you are doing the chuck and duck, throwing a lot of lead, wait for the tug on the back end. You feel the extension, that little tug of your split shot or your weighted fly, then you know you can deliver it. Another thing people have a hard time with is roll casting. Sometimes you can't do a back cast, so you've got to roll cast. And if your fly is down 5 feet under the water, you're not going to get much purchase out of that roll cast because it's trying to lift that fly up. So what you want to do your first roll cast, nothing really happens, and then kind of water ski your fly right along the surface, and that way it's not down 5 feet under. Just water ski that fly right across and boom. It makes it so much easier. So when you're using a weighted fly, sometimes you're going to be fishing a pond, a lake, or a really, real deep hole. And you're going to want to count it down to where the fish are. So you'll cast out, count to 5 seconds maybe, see if that works, then count to 10, and eventually you're either going to get in the fish or you're going to catch the bottom. But that will help you to get in the zone where the fish are for the day. And it's just really easy. Just wait 5 seconds and then start your strip, your retrieve. We got a little dry fly on here now, and when we're using a dry fly, it floats on the surface. We don't have to worry about that tight line and all that I was talking about, because we have the visual opportunity to watch the fish take the fly on the surface. When we're doing that, we want to try to maintain as more natural as a drift as possible. So there's bubbles out there, and so if you can get your fly to travel at the same speed as those bubbles, you're doing pretty good. It's okay to put a little bit of movement on there. Sometimes that shows like a live bug that's skittering along. This is sort of how it works. If you can see that bug traveling at the same speed, something just nailed it, probably a chub. Basically just about like that. Avoid any current grabbing it and dragging it faster than natural. Occasionally you get those pesky fish that are just hitting the fly in between your strips, and you feel it and you just can't get them. So a technique that works well when it's happening over and over again is do what I call a sweeping retrieve, where you just slowly drag it along, and you can use your left arm to get a little more, and you don't come anywhere beyond this point because you need room to set the hook. So you combine the left hand and the rod, and it gives you that nice steady stroke, and you get the bite, and bam, just nail them. You can also use this technique for weighted flies when you're bouncing the bottom. Sort of like that. I don't have a weighted fly on now, but get used to using that left arm to keep the extension and the tight line. Well, like we mentioned earlier, occasionally you're going to run into a current that's giving you difficulty. Like we've got a current right in front of us here, and it's going to grab that line and cause a big loop. My fly's traveling at triple the current speed. What you can do to buy a little bit of time is the loop's starting to form, throw a mend in the line. It's an upstream loop, and it does the opposite of what the current wants to do. You're just throwing a loop in the opposite direction. I'll do it one more time. Current's starting to grab it, throw a mend. It's good, it's starting to get straight. Throwing another one. It's very, very effective. Another benefit of mending, just now I've got a dry fly on, but if you're using a sinking fly in a heavy current, it allows that fly to sink a little bit faster without being dragged by the current. So definitely you want to learn how to mend. It's very, very easy. Don't be intimidated. So how do we bring in a fish? There's two ways to do it. One would be to strip them in, like so. The other would be to bring him in off the reel. Now, how do you bring him in off the reel if it's got all this line out? One way to do that would be keep tension on the fish and just reel it in as you're fighting. When you get to there, then you can switch over. Or if it's a real nice big one, you can just let him pull all that line out as he takes his run. Let him pull all that line out, and eventually he'll get to the reel, and then you can start cranking him in like that. Unfortunately, we don't have a fish to show you with, and Brian isn't willing to volunteer to be the guppy. so that's how that works. Occasionally we're going to find ourselves forced to make really long casts. And when that happens, you might be in a boat bombing the shoreline, and you're afraid to scare the fish if you get too close, or you might be on the river and there's a particular piece of structure that you need to get to that's 60, 70 feet out. So you strip in a little bit, and then you pick it up, and you're going to cast again. So a very important thing I really would like you to grasp onto is to start your back cast with your rod tip really low. If you don't, if you start it up here, you're giving up all that rod loading stroke. You're starting here, and it's difficult to get a lot of line out. So what I mean is start with your rod tip low, and that way you're going to get a really nice purchase of rod load because you're starting low, and that will really, really help up your distance. One cast, it's called the reach cast, and it helps to get your line all laid out beautifully for a nice swing of your fly, or sometimes even with a dry fly. And it's really easy. You get a nice a nice cast about 5 feet over the water, and just before it starts to settle, you just take your rod tip and you reach over. And it sort of goes like this. And you just reach it out, and it gets everything all lined up down the current, and it's very effective. So the next reason I mention that is when we swing a fly, what we do is we cast out into the current, and we basically let the current swing it along, and we just twitch, twitch. Sometimes just let the current, and you just get ready for that strike. When you're doing that, it's not a bad idea to remind yourself to set the hook to the side, not up. You would be pulling it out of their mouth. I miss a lot of fish that way. Strike to the side, and you'll definitely increase your hookups. One last little tip: if you're fishing a pond with top water, particularly like a popper for bass, that type of thing, what you want to do is cast out and let the rings of the fly spread out. They're like sound waves. Let them penetrate into the cover, the lily pads, whatever, and then give it a pop. And the best way, that the tendency is people to give the pop doing a side twitch. It works, but now you don't have a lot of room to set the hook. What you want to do is get in the habit of popping like so, like that. Just giving a strip. And one technique that's very good is after the pop, let it sit, and then just start slowly pulling it along. And it looks like it's getting away, and it stimulates a strike quite often. And I hope that my brother is going to watch this video, because he could use some tips, and he always beats me in golf, but fly fishing, he definitely could use a few tips. So Dan, I hope you check this out. Well, that's it for today. Hope this helps out a little bit. I think it's time to go fishing. Good luck.